last part of the slide. Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Vienna Wireless Society pregame show for the 8th of February, 2019. I wonder if I could ask all of you who are conversing to converse quietly or take it outside or maybe wait until refreshment time. That would be Lee and others. Okay, we're going to start off tonight with a wonderful discussion about QSLing. How many people here have never, ever either received or sent a QSL card? One. Is that right? Never sent. How many people here have never sent a QSL card in the last 10 years? Okay. You guys need to hear about what's going on with QSLing. And so I'm going to turn the microphone over to N4ZH Terry, and he's going to tell you about QSLing and tell you how to save some money while you do it.
That's always been the problem. Is the QS. Oh, is this going to change slides for me? Or it is. It's going to change slides, and it's also going to. It's got a laser pointer on it. Yes, sir. Oh boy, way too much technology here. All right. So anyway. You need to hold the mic out here. Okay. Well, that's too hard. Okay. So anyway, QSLing has been a big part of amateur radio for ever since it started. It's been the way all awards have been granted. You always had to have the QSLs in hand, filed with it. Any application you made to the league or CQ magazine or anybody that you were trying to get an award for work in DX. So. I'm advancing, and it's not advancing here. Okay, so basically, this hasn't changed for some time now. There are 3 ways to get a QSL, 3 ways to do it. Electronically, the physical card, in other words, and I'll talk about that specifically, and then the newest way of doing it is OQRS, Online QSL Request Service, and it has made a big change to the way QSLing is done, and it has for the last 10 years. It's been a major part of every big DX expedition. They use what is now called Club Log. And Club Log allows you to go online and either use PayPal or a credit card. Bottom line is, none of these DX expeditions want your card. They have no use for your card whatsoever. All they want is your income, your money, and then they'll send you the card they want your payment for the QSL. So basically, most of them are in the $5, $10 range is what most of the online QSL requests are for a big DX expedition. You can always give them more, but that's been the easiest way, and it's made a big change. So let's go on to the electronic version. Whoop. Okay, so the electronically is essentially the logbook of the world. I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about it, how it works. Essentially, you have to be credentialed to use LOTW. You send a little application to the league online, and then they send you a card back, and it's actually got a code in it, and that's what you enter in, and that gives you a certificate to you that you can then go online and upload your QSOs and check to see which ones of yours that have been confirmed. And it is now probably the fastest way LOTW has really grown is the use of LOTW. It's astounding. There's the statistics are that there's well over 1 billion QSOs now on LOTW. And that has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, mainly because of FT8. But then there's EQSL. I know a lot of people try to use it. The problem is it's not accepted by most big organizations. RSGB and the ARRL do not accept EQSL for their awards. So you can also use QRZ.com And then, of course, the one that I talked about is Club Log. The disadvantage for us old-timers who were part of this, getting the card, looking at the card, because a lot of individuality goes into the card. A lot of people have put a lot of work in what they put in their card, and you get a very strong feeling for what the other guys like, what his interests are, and what his equipment is. All of that, you don't get any of that on LOTW. So the personal part of QSLing is lost on LOTW, but it's very efficient and less expensive. For the physical cards, probably the only way that you can be about sure is direct mail to the station operator. It's very expensive, and that's been the big part of cost in QSLing, has been that sending that foreign postage. And in most stations, don't forget, I have a slide about this later on, but they don't want your card either. And so you've got to entice them to send them your card, their card, and the only way that's really happens is if you include postage money in the envelope. Now, there are certain countries, certain hams in underprivileged countries, third world countries, that actually derive revenue from QSLing. And so they absolutely insist on the green stamps, so that the dollars being in the envelopes. So you find out who they are and what they expect, but most of them demand some stipend on top of the cost of the postage. There's the one thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the QSL Bureau. That's been a big part of QSLing also, and it's been a much less expensive way of doing it. Essentially, the way that works is that the outgoing QSL, which is what our club does here, we take all of our cards, everybody that wants to send cards overseas to foreign countries, we batch them up, put them in the right order, then I send them up to the league, the ARRL. Then they take all the cards that they get, and they box them up, and they go to the International Amateur Radio Union member countries. So they put them actually in big, huge boxes, and they'll send thousands of cards to Great Britain, thousands of cards to India, all these other places, and our costs are much less, as opposed to having to do that individually. The Bureau batches them all up. It's cheaper, much cheaper to do. And so far this year, we spent about $115 of the club money sending up member QSLs. There used to be QSL services. That was a cheaper way of doing it. It was run by individuals. WF5E, he's closed. The FIST group, QCWA, 1010, I don't think they're open anymore. All these organizations used to run their own QSL bureaus. They've pretty much all shut that down. The only ones that are being run, the ARRL is the only one that I know of right now that's still operating. And then the incoming QSL Bureau is essentially the opposite, but it works differently. The member organizations from other countries then send them to the bureaus. So we have the 4 bureau for the 2x calls is the Sterling Park Amateur Radio Group. They do the 2x calls, and then the Carolina DX Association down in Charlotte does the 1x. So if you're a K, N, or W, then they're the bureau for those prefixes. And essentially what it is that you keep cards on file, or envelopes, and then they get 5 or 6 of your cards, and they just put them in an envelope and send them to you. So that's a pretty cheap way of doing it. Obviously a lot, and much more efficient than trying to expect to get a foreign ham to send you a card that way. One of the things I wanted to say about that is what I find a lot of guys don't do in our group here is they don't look on these websites to see who the managers are. It's a critical part of QSLing because you've worked the guy and he's got to call DL6HI. Don't expect for every case that's where the QSL goes. You've got to go to the QSL websites and look at it and see who his QSL manager is. It might be domestic. The guy may be here in the United States. So don't automatically assume that the QSL is going to go to the station with the call sign that you worked. And I'll tell you, the one I think is really the best is this Italian website, ik3qar.it. He is outstanding. He keeps a really good updated database of QSL managers. And it's a very effective way to make sure that you've got the right address on it. So on the QSL card, if you're a DXer, you'll see on the box up there top, there'll be a VIA box, and then there'll be for the call sign. The VIA is where the QSL manager goes. So you'll need to make sure that you've got the right one, the right QSL manager. Whoop. Okay, so here's the Bureau thing. Again, they're only operated now by the member AIRU member organizations. In the U.S., it's ARRL. Canada, it's the Radio Amateurs of Canada. Great Britain's RSGB, and DART in Germany. That's just a list of the major ones. But almost all ARRU countries, member countries, maintain a bureau. But there is a list on the ARRL website. Not every ARRU member country has a bureau. So you need to check that also. I find a lot of times when I'm doing cards, people will pass cards to me that are for countries that don't have bureaus. I can't do anything with them. So anyway, then what I just said, that's how we get them up there to the ARRL and the league. And in our organization here in this club, we used to do it monthly. And now we only do it 4 times a year. So the first meeting of the quarter, that Friday night, the following Saturday morning, the cards go to the league. So that's the one you want to bring it to, the first meeting of the month in that quarter. So last January, that first meeting, that right after that next day was when I sent the cards up to the league. That's the way it's. So keep that in mind, that when you pass me cards at other times during the quarter, they're not going to go anywhere until the quarter comes along. As I said, SPARC and Carolina DX Association. Oop. Okay. Here's the one thing I want to make sure you understand, is that they got more these foreign countries. They don't need another card from Northern Virginia. I guarantee you, they're not going to be impressed by seeing a card, no matter how pretty it is, how beautiful it is. If you really got to work at getting it. Nobody needs Northern Virginia anymore, I can assure you. So that QSL, as I said before, make sure that you understand that QSL received in those foreign countries represents revenue to those people. And so they're going to make sure that's there in order for you to get your card back. I hope that's clear. I hope that message is clear, that you really got to incentivize that guy on the other end to send you the card. I don't know of many grid scares in the United States that are not already pretty well populated, so. I must be pushing that wrong button here. Down arrow, that's the problem. There it is. One of the things I noticed about cards also, and I've made this point about this before, is that you want to make your card stylish and sort of attractive, but I can tell you, you don't want to flower it with a lot of stuff about organizations that are not ham radio related. Keep your political views off of it. Keep your religious affiliations off your cards, all that stuff. And I mean, there's no reason why you should want to irritate the guy on the other end with an overly aggressive, patriotic QSL card. I mean, if you have a flag of the United States or something like that, that's fine. But don't go into these elaborate, really strong messages about how great the United States is or anything like that. It's offensive to some of these people. So stay away from that. Make it just as make it attractive. Include your equipment list on your card, things like that. But don't go overboard on it. I've seen too many of them, and I know what they look like and how they get responded to. Good to use. One of the things I got to tell you about, though, that the tendency is our costs are going up for QSLing because the trend now, the tendency is to get to these really thick stock cards. And we used to have cards on very thin paper because most guys were mailing them, so they didn't want to spend a lot of money. But now all of a sudden paper's cheap, I guess, or something. But the QSL cards I'm getting to send up to the league, I mean, the stock, it's like hard board almost. I mean, it's not like a cardboard simple card. It's really, really thick and heavy, and that's adding a lot of cost to it because the league now charges $7 for just opening the envelope, and then it's $1.15 an ounce. And if you're using those thick, heavy cards, that $1.15 adds up pretty quickly. So, well, you know, I mean, I understand it's nice to have a nice card, thick card, but it is expensive in that respect. So that's basically what I wanted to say about it. I hope that you understand that this whole process of QSLing is kind of fading away too. It's getting less and less. I belong to the National Capital DX Association, and we sponsor the 3 Bureau. And I know the number of cards that we did last year. We're down 35,000 cards from what we used to do. We used to do several 100,000 cards in the 3 Bureau annually. And it just keeps coming down. So it's falling off rapidly.
On the incoming, when I have cards and I want to apply them to awards for the ARRL, we have a Hamfest coming up here, the Winterfest, and I think there's some card checking. Can you?
That's what I do. Yeah. Now, although I'm a card checker for the National Capital DX Association, I also do it for this club too. Absolutely. So basically, online, the ARRL has an online card entry system. And so what you do is you take your cards and you enter them directly onto the website. Yeah, you put your card there. There's a template that you fill out for the cards that you want to get checked. It will then print out the list, but more importantly, what it'll do is it will bill you, and you'll have to put a credit card in order to get the cards processed. If you expect to bring it to us at the last Saturday down in Richmond, I think 90% of the cards we checked down there were not done that way. They just handed us a stack of cards and their list, and we had to send them up to the league which meant they then had to call the league on Wednesday or Thursday when their list got up there, and the league would then figure out what their bill is. So that's essentially what happens. At the Hamfest, all we do is physically check your card against your list, verify that you have that card, And the advantage of what's happening there is you don't have to put that card in the mail. There's no chance of it getting lost. So it's always in your hand. You get it back right away.
So what do you do that for? And the answer is, then that gets merged into Logbook of the World.
No, it's a separate account. It's not the same. Logbook of the World is not the same as your paper QSLs. There's two different, in fact, there's two different fees for it. There's a fee for LOTW applications, and there's a fee for paper applications. And the paper applications get more. The more work that has to be done up there at the league, like these people that I checked last Saturday that just hand filled out their list and handed me the cards, they're going to pay the highest fee. If you do the online system, you'll save a lot of money because then they don't have to pay a clerk at the league to enter your cards up there into the system. You get what I'm saying?
The cards equally apply
Absolutely.
to an award.
Yes, and that's how you get the award. So it can be a combination of both paper QSLs and LOTW QSLs. But be aware of the fact that because you paid the fee for a paper QSL doesn't apply to your LOTW QSLs. If you want LOTW cards or QSLs applied to your awards, you're going to pay a separate fee for that. I mean, the league is now. I hear rumors that the league is actually going to lower some of these fees. Then they've actually decided that they don't really have to charge that much for it. So some of these things are coming down. Now, nothing's been posted about that. There's rumors about it. Yes, sir.
We're all familiar with a slick, glossy QSL card or even QSL card somebody would make on their home printer. Have you ever seen or heard of a QSL being confirmed with a letter or some kind of a certificate or a handwritten certificate?
Many unfortunately impoverished foreign hams can't afford formal printed cards, and so they will actually make them out by hand. And they'll get their kids or something to draw something on it, but it will clearly be a hand-drawn, hand-made out QSL card. I think I probably got 20 or 30 of them in my of cards that are made like that. And it's normally as I said, it's some third world underdeveloped country where printing is really not available.
Time for one more question before we move on to the exciting business meeting.
I was going to say one thing is, if you get a card and it has checked off, please send me one, please send them back a card. I've had a lot of people say, well, I send cards out, I never see anything back. So if you do get cards in the mail,
clearly, if you get a card from a foreign ham and it's got PSE, QSL, it used to be the standard practice when cards were cheap and postage was it was anybody that made a QSO automatically issued a QSL. That was just part of it. In fact, a lot of domestic cards. I used to get a lot of cards from other hams when postage was less than a quarter. You'd get cards from it was nothing about that was unexpected about getting it. But now you hardly ever get a card from a domestic station anymore.
60s, anytime you made a contact, you got a card. I have a stack this high of 2-meter cards. Imagine making a contact on 2 meters when it was AM, and you get a QSL card. I got counties from all over Northern California, but 2 meters. QSLing was part of the QSL.
Yeah. We have one member of our club that is 100% QSL, and that's Mike Stussy, AE4R. Regardless of where and when you work him, you will get a card from him. You check into the 10-meter net or any other thing, you work Mike, you'll get a card. And he's the only guy I know that's that way anymore.
On that, I've done a number of 200-plus mile VHF, UHF simplex queues, and I have 4 or 5 cards, and I don't have a card yet. So I always have to send an email back with lots of apologies, But yeah, so I need to fix that. Start doing this. But you do still get them for 2 meter.
Good.
cheapqsl.com.
Now this is the third time he's done this. I learned something every time, and this is just a preview for what's going to happen after snacks. But first, we have some business to take care of.